Emma Carter had always been a fighter. Growing up in a small, run-down neighborhood on the outskirts of Chicago, she learned early on that life wasn't fair, and neither was survival. Her parents worked long hours at low-paying jobs just to keep food on the table, but when her father passed away unexpectedly during her senior year of high school, everything changed. Suddenly, Emma became the backbone of her family, taking care of her younger siblings while her mother picked up extra shifts. College dreams felt like distant fantasies, until she won a partial scholarship to attend a local university. But scholarships didn't cover rent, groceries, or textbooks. So at 22 years old, Emma juggled 3 part-time jobs, waiting tables at a diner, tutoring struggling students, and cleaning offices late at night, all while trying to maintain decent grades. She lived in a cramped studio apartment with 2 roommates who were equally broke. Their shared space smelled perpetually of burnt toast and cheap air freshener, and their budget allowed for little more than instant noodles and dollar store coffee. Still, Emma refused to give up. She told herself every day that this struggle would be worth it once she graduated and landed a stable job. It was during one particularly grueling shift at the diner that Emma first met Harold Whitmore. He walked in on a Tuesday morning, wearing an impeccably tailored suit that stood out among the faded jeans and sweatshirts of the other customers. His silver hair gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and his warm smile seemed almost out of place in the dingy establishment. When he sat down at Emma's section, she plastered on her best customer service grin and approached him with a notepad in hand. "What can I get you today?" she asked cheerfully, though exhaustion weighed heavily behind her eyes. Harold glanced up at her, his piercing blue eyes twinkling with amusement. "Coffee black," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "And whatever your recommendation is for breakfast." Emma hesitated. Most people ordered pancakes or omelets, but the diner's real specialty was its greasy bacon and egg combo. "I'd say go for the classic American breakfast," she suggested, pointing to the menu. "Perfect," Harold replied with a nod. As she turned to leave, he added, "You look tired. Are you working too hard?" The question caught Emma off guard. No customer had ever shown genuine concern for her before. "Just lots of bills," she admitted sheepishly before hurrying away to place his order. Over the next few weeks, Harold became a regular. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, he showed up at the same time, always sitting in Emma's section. They began chatting casually between orders, and Emma discovered that Harold was not only wealthy but also surprisingly kind and down to earth. He spoke fondly of his late wife, whom he described as the love of his life, and confessed that he missed having someone to share his days with. At first, Emma assumed Harold was simply lonely and enjoyed talking to her because she listened. But then one rainy afternoon he dropped a bombshell. "I've been thinking about something," Harold said as Emma refilled his coffee cup. His tone was serious, almost nervous. "You're an extraordinary young woman, Emma. Intelligent, hardworking, compassionate. I admire those qualities deeply." Emma blinked, unsure how to respond. "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore, that means a lot." "Please call me Harold," he insisted. Then, after a brief pause, he continued, "I know we come from very different worlds, but I believe connections like ours are rare, and I'm getting older. Time isn't on my side anymore." Emma frowned, sensing where this conversation might be heading. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Harold leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Emma, I want to ask you to marry me." For a moment, Emma thought she'd misheard him. Marry him? This man who could be her grandfather? It sounded absurd, impossible. Yet, as Harold explained his reasoning, she found herself considering it. He promised financial security, a way out of the relentless cycle of debt and poverty that had defined her life for so long. He assured her that she wouldn't have to work another exhausting shift or worry about paying tuition. He even offered to help her family, ensuring they'd never struggle again. "But why me?" Emma finally asked, her voice trembling. "There must be hundreds of women closer to your age who would jump at the chance to marry you." Harold smiled softly. "Because you're special, Emma. You remind me of my late wife. Her strength, her determination, her heart. I see so much, potential in you. And maybe, just maybe, I can give you the opportunities you deserve. Emma spent days agonizing over the decision. On one hand, marrying Harold felt like selling her soul. What would people think? How could she live with herself knowing she'd entered into such an arrangement for money? But on the other hand, the offer was tempting. Desperation clouded her judgment, whispering that this might be her only chance to escape the suffocating grip of poverty. In the end, practicality won out. With tears streaming down her face, Emma accepted Harold's proposal. They married quietly in a courthouse ceremony 2 weeks later, surrounded only by a handful of witnesses. As Emma slipped the diamond ring onto her finger, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into uncharted territory, a world of luxury and privilege she barely understood. Yet, deep down, she hoped this decision would lead to a better future. Little did she know her journey was only beginning. The day after their wedding, Emma stepped into Harold's mansion for the first time. Nestled on a hill overlooking Lake Michigan, the house was more like a palace than a home. Its marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and sprawling windows offered breathtaking views of the water. Every corner exuded opulence: plush sofas, expensive artwork, and even a grand piano in the living room that looked untouched. Emma felt like she'd landed in another universe. Just last week, she had been scraping mold off bread in her tiny apartment. Now she was surrounded by wealth beyond her wildest dreams. Maids bustled about, keeping the place spotless, while a personal chef prepared gourmet meals 3 times a day. For the first time in her life, Emma didn't have to worry about bills, rent, or where her next paycheck would come from. But despite the luxury, something didn't sit right with her. Harold seemed genuinely kind and attentive, treating her with respect and affection. He gave her free rein over the household staff and encouraged her to redecorate any part of the mansion she wanted. Yet, his behavior often left her puzzled. Despite his warm demeanor, there was an air of secrecy around him, a sense that he wasn't telling her everything. For starters, Harold disappeared frequently without explanation. Sometimes he'd leave early in the morning and return late at night, claiming he had business meetings to attend. When Emma asked who these meetings were with or what they entailed, Harold brushed her off with vague answers. Just some old associates, he'd say with a dismissive wave of his hand. Nothing exciting. What bothered Emma most, however, were the locked rooms scattered throughout the mansion. On her second day there, she noticed several doors with heavy locks, including one near the basement staircase. Curious, she asked Harold about them during dinner. "Oh, those are storage areas," he replied casually, cutting into his steak. "Old furniture, documents, things like that. Nothing important." His tone was light, almost playful, but the way his eyes flickered away told Emma otherwise. She let it drop for now, but resolved to investigate further when the opportunity arose. As the days turned into weeks, Emma tried to adapt to her new life. She enrolled in online classes so she could focus on finishing her degree without worrying about finances. She also reached out to her family, sending them money for groceries and utilities. Seeing the relief in her mother's voice made her feel less guilty about accepting Harold's proposal. Still, the nagging feeling that something was off lingered in the back of her mind. One evening, about a month into their marriage, Emma decided to test Harold's boundaries. After dinner, she suggested taking a walk through the gardens behind the mansion. Harold agreed enthusiastically, looping her arm through his as they strolled along the manicured paths. "Do you miss your old life?" Harold asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Emma hesitated. "Not really," she admitted. "I mean, I don't miss struggling to pay rent or eating ramen every night, but sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice." Harold stopped walking and turned to face her. His expression softened. "Emma, I know this arrangement isn't conventional, and I understand why you might feel uneasy. But I promise you, I have your best interest at heart. You'll see that in time." His words should have reassured her, but instead they raised more questions. Why did he sound so cryptic? What exactly was he planning? Later that night, unable to sleep, Emma wandered downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of water. As she passed one of the locked doors, she paused. The mansion was eerily quiet save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Her heart raced as she glanced around, half expecting someone or something to appear. Before she could talk herself out of it, she twisted the doorknob. It was locked, just as Harold had said. Frustrated, she knelt down and examined the lock closely. It looked sturdy but not impossible to pick. Making a mental note to find tools later, she stood up and hurried back to bed before anyone caught her snooping. The next morning, Emma woke up determined to uncover the truth. While Harold was out for one of his mysterious meetings, she searched the house for anything that might help her unlock the forbidden rooms. In his study, she found a drawer filled with spare keys labeled with numbers and letters. One key stood out. It matched the description of the lock on the basement door. Her hands trembled as she slipped the key into her pocket. By the time Harold returned home, she had already started rehearsing excuses in case he confronted her. But to her relief, he didn't seem to notice anything amiss. That night, after Harold retired to his bedroom, Emma crept downstairs. Her heart pounded as she inserted the key into the lock and turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit staircase leading downward. Taking a deep breath, she descended step by step, unsure of what awaited her below. At the bottom, she found herself in a large windowless room. Rows of filing cabinets lined the walls and a desk sat in the center, cluttered with papers and photographs. Emma picked up one of the photos and gasped. It showed Harold standing beside a group of men in suits all smiling broadly. Behind them loomed a massive structure that looked like a spaceship, or at least something out of a science fiction movie. Confused and intrigued, Emma began sifting through the documents. Most of them were technical blueprints and scientific reports written in language she barely understood. One phrase kept appearing repeatedly: Project Elysium. Whatever it was, it clearly meant something significant to Harold. Suddenly, she heard footsteps above her head. Panicking, she shoved the papers back onto the desk and bolted up the stairs, locking the door behind her. By the time she reached her bedroom, her pulse was racing and her mind was spinning with theories. What was Project Elysium? Why was Harold involved? And why had he lied to her about the locked rooms? Over the next few days, Emma avoided bringing up the subject, fearing Harold's reaction. Instead, she bided her time, gathering bits of information whenever she could. She eavesdropped on his phone calls, peeked at his emails when he wasn't looking, and even followed him once when he left for a meeting. Each clue only deepened the mystery. Harold's associates spoke in hushed tones about preparations and protocols, while emails hinted at global-scale operations. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Harold was hiding something monumental, not just from her but from the entire world. And then, one fateful evening, everything changed. Harold came home earlier than usual, his face pale and drawn. Without saying a word, he grabbed Emma's hand and led her to the living room. There, on the television screen, flashed breaking news footage of strange lights hovering over major cities worldwide. Reporters speculated wildly about UFO sightings, government cover-ups, and alien invasions. Emma stared at the screen in disbelief. "Is this real?" she whispered. Harold nodded grimly. "It's happening sooner than we expected," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. Emma's blood ran cold. "You knew about this, didn't you? This is what Project Elysium is about, isn't it?" Harold sighed deeply, running a hand through his silver hair. "Yes, Emma. And now, it's time for you to know the truth." As he launched into an explanation, Emma realized that her life was about to take another dramatic turn, one far bigger than she could have ever imagined. Emma sat frozen on the couch, her mind racing as Harold began to explain. His voice was calm but tinged with urgency, as though he were preparing her for something monumental. Outside, the television continued to broadcast chaotic scenes of glowing lights hovering over cities worldwide: New York, Tokyo, London, all bathed in an eerie glow that defied explanation. Reporters struggled to make sense of the phenomenon, their voices trembling with fear and disbelief. "Aliens," Harold said simply, cutting through the noise. "They've arrived. Emma's stomach churned. She had always thought aliens belonged in movies or conspiracy theories, not real life. Yet here she was sitting next to a man who seemed disturbingly prepared for this exact moment. "How long have you known about this?" Emma demanded, her voice sharp with accusation. Harold hesitated before answering. "Decades," he admitted finally. "Not everything, of course. We didn't know when or even if they'd come. But we knew it was a possibility. That's why Project Elysium exists." Emma narrowed her eyes. "And what exactly is Project Elysium?" Harold leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. "It's humanity's contingency plan, a global initiative to prepare Earth for extraterrestrial contact, whether peaceful or hostile. My role has been to oversee funding and logistics. The structure you saw in that photograph? It's one of many advanced defense systems we've built in secret." Emma shook her head, struggling to process what he was saying. "You married me because of this project?" Harold sighed deeply. "No, Emma. I married you because I care about you. But yes, your involvement wasn't entirely coincidental. Your intelligence, resilience, and ability to adapt under pressure made you an ideal candidate to help lead Project Elysium if needed." The words hit Emma like a punch to the gut. So it was true. He hadn't chosen her solely out of love. She was a pawn in his grand scheme, a backup plan in case things went wrong. Betrayal burned in her chest, but she forced herself to stay focused. There would be time to confront him later. Right now, they had bigger problems. "What happens next?" she asked, her tone clipped. Harold stood up and motioned for her to follow him. "We need to secure the mansion and activate emergency protocols. If the aliens are here, we can't assume their intentions are friendly." As they moved through the house, Emma noticed subtle changes. The staff had vanished, presumably evacuated, and the mansion felt eerily quiet. Harold led her to a hidden panel in the wall of his study, which slid open to reveal a keypad. After entering a code, a section of the floor descended, revealing a spiral staircase leading underground. "This is our bunker," Harold explained as they descended, fully stocked with supplies, communication equipment, and access to Project Elysium's mainframe. At the bottom, they entered a high-tech command center filled with monitors displaying real-time data from around the world. Maps blinked with red dots indicating alien activity, while news feeds streamed non-stop updates. Emma stared at the screens, in awe, overwhelmed by the scale of what was unfolding. Harold gestured toward a desk piled with documents. "Start going through these files. They'll give you a clearer picture of what we're dealing with." Reluctantly, Emma sat down and began reading. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. According to the reports, Earth's governments had been aware of potential alien threats for years. Classified studies suggested that certain civilizations beyond our planet viewed humanity as either primitive pests or valuable resources to exploit. Project Elysium's goal was twofold: establish Earth as a unified force capable of defending itself, and develop technology to level the playing field against superior alien forces. The Star Destroyers Emma had glimpsed in the photographs weren't science fiction. They were real, hidden beneath the Earth's surface and ready to deploy at a moment's notice. As she sifted through the documents, Emma's anger toward Harold softened slightly. This wasn't just some billionaire's vanity project, it was a desperate attempt to protect humanity from extinction. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd been manipulated into this role. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, turning to Harold. "I wanted to," he admitted. "But timing is everything. Revealing too much too soon could have jeopardized the entire operation. Trust me, Emma, I never intended to keep you in the dark forever." Before Emma could respond, alarms blared throughout the bunker. Red warning lights flashed, casting the room in an ominous glow. Harold rushed to one of the monitors, his face pale. "They're attacking," he said grimly. On the screen, footage showed massive alien ships descending over major cities. Energy beams lashed out, obliterating buildings and scattering terrified crowds. The destruction was catastrophic, spreading faster than anyone could react. Emma watched in horror as the chaos unfolded. What do we do now? Harold turned to her, his expression resolute. We fight back. He quickly typed commands into the computer, bringing up schematics of the Star Destroyers. These ships are humanity's last hope. Each one is equipped with weapons powerful enough to take down an alien vessel, but activating them requires authorization codes, and I need your help to input them. Emma hesitated. Why me? You could do it yourself. No, Harold replied firmly. This isn't just my responsibility anymore. It's yours too. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not. Emma swallowed hard, steeling herself. Despite her anger and confusion, she knew she couldn't stand by and do nothing. Millions of lives depended on them. Fine, she said, sitting down at the console. Tell me what to do. Harold guided her step by step through the activation process. As she entered the final sequence, the monitors lit up with confirmation messages. One by one, the Star Destroyers roared to life, emerging from their underground bunkers and ascending into the skies above Earth. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a glimmer of hope. But the battle was far from over as the Star Destroyers engaged the alien fleet. Explosions erupted across the globe. Cities trembled as energy blasts clashed in the atmosphere, lighting up the night sky like fireworks. Emma gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white, praying that humanity's gamble would pay off. Beside her, Harold stood silently, his eyes fixed on the monitors. For all his confidence, he looked older now, weighed down by the enormity of what he'd set in motion. Finally, after what felt like hours, the tide began to turn. The Star Destroyer's superior firepower started gaining the upper hand, forcing the alien ships to retreat. Cheers erupted in the bunker as the news confirmed victory, but it was bittersweet. The cost of the battle had been devastating, with countless lives lost and entire cities reduced to rubble. When the dust settled, Emma turned to Harold, tears streaming down her face. Is this really what you signed up for? All those years of secrecy, sacrifice just to see this happen? Harold placed a hand on her shoulder. I did it because I believed in a better future, for everyone. And now, thanks to you, humanity has a fighting chance. Emma nodded slowly, realizing that her journey was far from over. Whether she liked it or not, she was now a key player in Earth's survival. And deep down, she understood that she wouldn't trade this responsibility for anything, not even her old, simpler life. The aftermath of the alien attack left Earth in ruins. Cities lay smoldering, their skylines shattered like broken teeth against the horizon. Millions were displaced, and the air was thick with grief and uncertainty. Yet, amidst the devastation, humanity clung to a fragile sense of hope. The Star Destroyers had proven effective, driving the alien fleet back into the void from which they came. For now, Earth was safe, but no one knew how long that reprieve would last. In the bunker beneath Harold's mansion, Emma sat staring at the monitors, her mind reeling. The adrenaline rush of battle had faded, leaving behind an overwhelming exhaustion. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through images of the destruction above ground. Collapsed buildings, charred streets, and endless lines of refugees fleeing the wreckage. Guilt gnawed at her. Guilt for surviving when so many hadn't. Guilt for being part of a plan that had known this day might come. Harold stood nearby, watching her silently. He looked older, his face lined with stress and sorrow. Despite his calm demeanor, there was a heaviness in his eyes that betrayed the weight of what he'd done, and what he still had to do. You saved us, Emma said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. But at what cost? Harold sighed, deeply rubbing his temples. War always comes at a cost, Emma. This wasn't just about defending Earth. It was about proving we're not defenseless, that humanity can stand together against any threat. But why didn't anyone prepare for this sooner? Emma demanded, her frustration boiling over. Why keep Project Elysium a secret? If people had known, maybe fewer lives would have been lost. Harold shook his head. It's complicated. Governments feared panic if the truth got out. They also worried about rogue actors using the technology for personal gain, or worse, starting unnecessary conflicts. Secrecy was the only way to ensure unity when the time came. Emma crossed her arms, unconvinced. Unity? You mean control. People deserve to know the truth, Harold. Keeping secrets doesn't protect them. It makes them vulnerable. Harold hesitated, then nodded slowly. You're right. Trust is critical moving forward. Which is why I need your help rebuilding. Not just physically, but emotionally. Humanity needs leaders who understand both sides. Those who planned for this moment and those who lived through it unprepared. Emma frowned, unsure how to respond. She wanted to argue, to demand answers for every lie and omission, but something stopped her. Deep down, she realized Harold wasn't entirely wrong. Yes, he'd manipulated her into this role, but he genuinely believed in its importance. And whether she liked it or not, she was now part of something much bigger than herself. Fine, she said eventually, standing up. But you owe me full transparency from here on out. No more secrets. Harold smiled faintly, relief flickering across his face. Agreed. Starting now, you'll have access to everything. Every document, every meeting, every decision. Together, we'll steer humanity toward recovery. Over the next few days, Emma immersed herself in Project Elysium's operations. With Harold's guidance, she reviewed detailed reports on the Star Destroyer's capabilities, studied alien technology recovered from downed ships, and attended strategy sessions with global leaders via secure video calls. Each revelation deepened her understanding of the project and her anger toward Harold. She learned that Project Elysium wasn't just about defense, it was also about diplomacy. Scientists within the organization had spent years analyzing signals intercepted from space, attempting to decipher alien languages and intentions. Some believed communication could prevent future attacks, while others argued that preparation for war was the only viable option. One evening, while poring over classified files in the bunker, Emma stumbled upon a folder labeled First Contact Protocols. Curious, she opened it and began reading. The documents outlined steps for initiating peaceful dialogue with extraterrestrial civilizations, including guidelines for cultural exchange and resource sharing. It was a stark contrast to the militaristic focus of the Star Destroyers. Emma felt torn. On one hand, she admired the idea of reaching out peacefully. On the other, she couldn't ignore the devastation wrought by the recent invasion. Who was to say the aliens wouldn't strike again? Her thoughts were interrupted by Harold entering the room. He glanced at the folder in her hands and nodded approvingly. I see you found our diplomatic efforts, he said, sitting beside her. Why didn't you tell me about these earlier? Emma asked, holding up the file. This seems just as important as the weapons. It is, Harold admitted. But diplomacy takes time. Time we didn't have during the attack. The Star Destroyers were our first line of defense. Now that they've bought us some breathing room, we can shift focus toward negotiation. Emma chewed her lip thoughtfully. Do you think it's possible? Peace, I mean. Harold hesitated before answering. I believe it has to be. War isn't sustainable. Not against a species far more advanced than ours. But building trust will require patience and sacrifice. Are you willing to take that risk? Emma stared at him, weighing his words. Risk was nothing new to her. From struggling to pay rent as a college student to marrying a man she barely knew, she'd spent her entire life taking chances. Why should this be any different? Yes, she said firmly. If it means preventing another attack, I'm willing to try. As weeks turned into months, Emma threw herself into her new role. Alongside Harold, she worked tirelessly to rebuild trust between Project Elysium and world governments, advocating for transparency and cooperation. She toured refugee camps, listening to survivors' stories and promising aid. She even participated in radio broadcasts, urging citizens to remain hopeful despite the challenges ahead. Slowly, but surely, humanity began to heal. Construction crews rebuilt cities, scientists studied alien tech for potential benefits, and diplomats drafted proposals for interstellar peace talks. Meanwhile, the Star Destroyers remained on standby, ready to defend Earth if necessary. Yet, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that their victory was temporary. The aliens' retreat had been too sudden, almost calculated. Were they regrouping, planning another assault? Or had they simply decided Earth wasn't worth the effort? One night, as she stood on the mansion's balcony overlooking Lake Michigan, Harold joined her. The water shimmered under the moonlight, offering a rare moment of tranquility. "What happens if they come back?" Emma asked quietly. Harold placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll face them together, whatever comes. Thanks to you, humanity is stronger now, more united, and that gives us a fighting chance." Emma nodded, drawing strength from his words. For the first time since their marriage, she felt a genuine connection to Harold, not as a pawn in his plans, but as an equal partner in shaping the future. Together, they gazed at the stars, knowing that Earth's survival depended on their ability to adapt, cooperate, and persevere. Whatever the universe threw at them next, they were ready. Months passed since the alien invasion, and life on Earth slowly began to stabilize. The scars of war were still visible: ruined cities, displaced families, and lingering fears. But humanity's resilience shone through. Under Emma's leadership, Project Elysium evolved from a secretive defense initiative into a global symbol of unity. She became the face of hope, traveling the world to rally nations, inspire communities, and advocate for peace. People admired her courage and determination, unaware that she had once been an ordinary college student struggling to survive. Harold, too, played a crucial role in rebuilding efforts. His wealth and influence helped fund reconstruction projects, provide aid to refugees, and develop new technologies using salvaged alien artifacts. Yet despite their shared mission, tension simmered beneath the surface of their relationship. Emma couldn't forget how Harold had manipulated her into this role, nor could she ignore the secrets he continued to keep. One evening, as they reviewed plans for upcoming diplomatic talks with suspected alien factions, Emma confronted him. "You still haven't told me everything," she said, her voice firm. "What aren't you sharing?" Harold hesitated, his expression guarded. "Emma, some things are better left unsaid. Trust me, it's safer this way." "Safer for who? For you? Or for me?" she shot back, slamming her hands on the table. "I'm done being kept in the dark, Harold. If we're going to lead humanity forward, I deserve to know the truth." For a moment, Harold looked conflicted. Then, with a heavy sigh, he nodded. "Fine, follow me." He led her to a secure room deep within the bunker, a place even Emma hadn't been allowed to enter before. Inside, holographic displays projected maps of star systems, alien hieroglyphs, and classified documents detailing decades of covert research. At the center of the room stood a pedestal holding a strange device, an orb pulsating with faint blue light. "This is why I've been so cautious," Harold explained, gesturing toward the orb. "It's not just about defending Earth or negotiating peace. It's about survival on a cosmic scale." Emma frowned, stepping closer to examine the object. "What is it?" "It's a beacon," Harold replied grimly. "A signal sent by the aliens during their retreat. We believe it's designed to summon reinforcements." Emma's heart sank. "Reinforcements? You mean there's more coming?" Harold nodded. "That's why we must act quickly. This beacon contains coordinates pointing to the aliens' home system. With the right calculations, we can use it to locate them and negotiate terms before they return in greater numbers." Emma stared at the orb, her mind racing. "And what if they refuse to negotiate? What then?" "Then we prepare for another battle," Harold said simply. "But this time we won't wait for them to attack first. We'll strike preemptively if necessary." Emma recoiled, horrified. "You're talking about starting an interstellar war. How can you justify that after everything we've been through?" "I'm not justifying anything," Harold snapped, his calm facade cracking. "I'm trying to protect billions of lives, including yours. Do you think I wanted any of this? To drag you into my mess, to watch innocent people suffer because of decisions made long before you were born? No, Emma. But these are the cards we've been dealt, and if playing them means sacrificing morality for survival, so be it. Emma felt a surge of anger and pity. For the first time, she saw Harold not as a manipulative billionaire, but as a man burdened by impossible choices. Still, she refused to let him shoulder the responsibility alone. "Then teach me," she said firmly. "Teach me everything. If we're going to make these decisions, I want to understand the stakes fully." Harold studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "All right, but promise me one thing: you'll never stop questioning. Never stop pushing for a better path." Over the following weeks, Emma immersed herself in learning about the beacon and its implications. Scientists worked tirelessly to decode its signals, while strategists debated whether diplomacy or aggression would yield better results. Meanwhile, Emma faced mounting pressure from global leaders eager to take drastic measures. Some argued for launching an offensive campaign against the aliens' home system, while others urged caution, fearing retaliation. Caught between conflicting opinions, Emma struggled to find balance. Her nights were sleepless, haunted by visions of destruction and loss. Yet each morning she rose determined to forge a brighter future, not just for humanity but for all intelligent life. Her turning point came during a meeting with a team of linguists attempting to translate alien communications. They presented her with a breakthrough: fragments of a message suggesting the invaders hadn't acted out of malice but desperation. Their planet was dying, forcing them to seek resources elsewhere. Emma realized this changed everything. "If they're desperate, maybe they're willing to talk," she said during a heated discussion with Harold and other advisors. "We owe it to ourselves, and to them, to try diplomacy first." Harold shook his head. "Too risky. What if they see our outreach as weakness?" "Better than provoking them with violence," Emma countered. "Imagine how we'd feel if someone attacked us without understanding our situation, don't we? Owe them the same courtesy?" Reluctantly, Harold agreed to support her plan. Together, they drafted a proposal offering humanitarian aid and resource-sharing agreements in exchange for peaceful coexistence. Using the beacon's coordinates, they transmitted the message into deep space, hoping for a response. Weeks dragged by with no reply. Doubts crept in among the team and tensions flared. Critics accused Emma of naivety, claiming her idealism would doom humanity. Even Harold began second-guessing their decision, urging her to consider alternative strategies. But Emma remained steadfast. "We've fought enough battles," she insisted. "Let's give peace a chance." Then, one fateful night, the monitors in the command center lit up with activity. A response had arrived, a complex series of symbols accompanied by audio patterns resembling music. Translators scrambled to decipher the message, eventually concluding it was a tentative agreement to meet on neutral ground. The news sparked both excitement and apprehension. Humanity prepared for its first official contact with extraterrestrial beings, assembling a delegation led by Emma and Harold. As they boarded a star destroyer bound for the designated meeting point, emotions ran high. Fear, hope, curiosity, all intertwined in a fragile web of possibility. When the alien vessel appeared on the horizon, a sleek, shimmering craft unlike anything Earth had ever seen, Emma felt a mix of awe and dread. Accompanied by a small team, she stepped onto the docking platform, where representatives of the alien species awaited them. Towering figures with translucent skin and glowing eyes greeted the humans cautiously, exchanging gestures of goodwill. Through translators and visual aids, negotiations began. Both sides expressed their concerns and desires, working toward common ground. By the end of the session, they reached a historic accord. Earth would share resources and technology in exchange for assurances of non-aggression and mutual cooperation. As Emma returned home, hailed as a hero for brokering peace, she reflected on her journey. From poverty to power, betrayal to redemption, she had transformed into someone capable of shaping the destiny of two civilizations. Standing beside Harold, watching the sunrise over a recovering Earth, she smiled softly. "We did it," she said. "Yes," Harold replied, his voice filled with pride. Together we did. Though challenges lay ahead, Emma knew humanity had taken its first step toward a brighter future, one built on trust, understanding, and unity.